It's much too hot for this many pants. Running network lines isn't rocket surgery. Just about anybody can figure it out. But we did run into a mystery recently. A network jack in an office we were working in was only able to transfer over at 100 megabit speeds. No matter what we connected to it, it would not connect at gigabit speed. We checked and the cabling was all gigabit, so the only thing left in the equation that we could see was the networking jacks, and we wondered whether this was a problem that we're going to have to go back and fix. So we're always told, make sure your twists are as tight into the jack as possible because this will affect your networking speed. And given that the biggest difference between the different category of networking patch cables is how tightly the twists are wound, it starts to bring up some questions. How finicky are these things? So we got to thinking, how bad a job could we do networking if we were purposely trying to do bad networking? Say that 10 times fast. We've got network cable, we've got jacks, we've got some patch cables and switches. Let's see what kind of crappy jobs we can get to. What we're gonna set up here is the idea where we've got a patch panel in a server room, and then we've got line throughout the office, and it's going to end at a jack in an office that's going to connect into a computer. And we're going to see what kind of speeds we can slow this down by doing a super bad job of connecting our jacks. So then another question would be, if we mix up our wiring standards, a type A jack to a type B jack, does that play a role? Does the computer even know what to do with that kind of scenario at that point? We think it does, but let's actually get down to the bottom of this by actually learn by doing. I want to copy a single file, so if I pull down 10 gigs, we should be able to see jumping between 64 and 128 megabytes per second. We saw that we're copying 100 megabytes, that's proper gigabyte speed. Okay, cool. So, good cabling keeps our gigabit speed. That's if we were careful about everything we were doing, keeping the twists nice and tight all the way to the terminals. What happens if we get some pests and they pull out or they nibble through one of our connectors? Okay, so we've got one now for inquiring minds. This is one of our green. Oh, can't be completed because of unexpected. What? Okay. Wow. We lost our connection to our server. Okay, so what I'm curious to see is if we really screw up the twists here, can we get that to kick down just by untwisting a bunch of this? Can we get that to kick down to 10-100? Okay. See if we get this and make this a real mangled mess. What happens? We've all seen where someone's made a patch cable and there's, like an inch of like straight cable coming out of the end. That's technically wrong. I'm still gonna punch these in to where they're supposed to go. So that one's brown, blue one's supposed to go over here, green stripe goes here, orange goes over here. We have some partners who are telecom specialists that are watching this right now and shouting obscenities and throwing things at the screen. If we had a rat's nest like this come through, so I'm going to start copying a file over. Yeah, that sucker's going at full gigabit speed. So if I crinkle everything up, well, the thing lost connection altogether. So yeah, once there's too much noise on it, our switch is now only recognizing it's at a 10-100. All right, so lesson one, this much, way too much loose cable at the end of your jack. We can see that we definitely want our pairs to stay twisted as far into the jack as possible. But another scenario that we might come across is you've just built a new home, and the electricians put nice networking jacks all over your house, but then just left empty cables downstairs in your mechanical room. The electrician will have punched your jacks in all over your house with either type A or type B wiring, and sometimes the jacks might not be labeled or you might not want to pull them out. The point is, if we have jacks wired with B and we wire our punch panel or our jacks in the basement with A, what happens then? Well, we're going to show you. We are theorizing right now that the device is actually, because these are two well-known standards, networking devices actually may be able to just figure this out for themselves, and you don't have to worry too much about that. Now, having said that, it might also be that devices that you're using for your networking aren't smart enough to do this. Ultimately, it's best if you use the same standard both upstairs and downstairs. But while we've got experiments going, let's see what's going on. Okay, so we're gonna wire this one A, because that one's B, which means the brown pair go over here. Okay, we've got an A to B scenario. Plug it in. Oh, hey, look at that. We got gigabit wiring. So definitely with our MacBook and our Unify switch, it can figure out what's going on. Do we have a line tester? Yeah. So what we can see there is it's a crossover connection. So I think we've answered at least a few questions. We haven't gotten that many more questions, so that's a win for the day. So to sum up, we've gone over a couple of different situations. We've tried to wire the jacks as best we can and shown that they're not too finicky if you're looking for gigabit speeds. But once you get up into 10 gig and beyond, there you really need to be doing a very careful job or bring in a specialist. If you've got a ton of lead that's unwound or wrapped around a nail or whatever, if there's an electrician that did a janky job wiring your house, you might see a jack that only will give you 10/100 performance out of a particular line. And lastly, if you're finding that something's a little bit hinky and you test the line with a line tester and you see a crossover, it could well be that you've got an A spec jack on one end and a B spec punch panel on the other end. I think we've learned more than we've not learned. Thanks for watching. See you next week. In this office, we believe in the scientific principle. Usually. Finally broke something. Man, who knew it was going to be this hard?